Tom Thibodeau is out as president and head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Ryan Saunders has been named the interim head coach. Also, reports are surfacing that Fred Hoiberg, the Timberwolves are interested in him in some capacity, but Scott Layden will remain the general manager and Ryan Saunders will step in as the interim head coach. Welcome to the American Express Halftime Report. Chris Miles here with Mike Fratello and Dennis Scott. So looking at the situation in Minnesota, it seems like owner Glenn Taylor wanted to provide an opportunity for Saunders to step in and get a coaching job.
That's the way it seems. Obviously, when you win a game by 18 or 20 points and you get fired immediately after it, this just wasn't something that was spur of the moment. Right. So this has been talked about, this has been discussed, and for whatever the reasons are, we won't know right now, but eventually will come out who was unhappy, why they were not satisfied with what was going on. It was a difficult situation because going in, I think Tom Thibodeau knew that changes had to be made, a new culture had to be developed. He got them to the playoffs last year. Yep. But your two stars were young guys who, based on Jimmy Butler's evaluation of them, didn't understand how hard you have to work to be successful in the NBA and what it takes to make it and win in the playoffs. That caused a split with Jimmy Butler and the young guys. Butler then was moved on. And now who knows what went on behind the scenes with the young guys.
Chris, it's been well documented what this team has gone through the last couple years, making the playoffs the very last game of the season last year. You bring in Jimmy, they're trying to bring in some toughness, to kind of help them play a certain way. Remember, we all asked each other, Coach, what took so long for Karl Anthony Towns to sign his extension? Remember, he wasn't signing it at first.
Yes.
So all those things you're saying, what's going on behind closed doors? Is Thibodeau's style of coaching guys hard, long practices? Then you heard that he was cutting back on the physical side of practice, but the mental side, Coach, was still a little bit longer than some of the young guys liking. So all that stuff, now if you go back to training camp, then the Jimmy Butler trade, then they were losing, and then to all of our points, wait a minute, last 8 games are 5-3, they're playing well, and then bam. That's why we're all like shocked at first, but then when you go back and look at the history of what this team has gone through, Coach, then you say, okay, now Glenn Taylor's probably fed up.
Let's look at the staff that they had put together there, okay? I believe Tom Thibodeau was a person that brought in Scott Layden to the front office. Layden had been from Utah to San Antonio, and then Thibodeau hand-selected him. And Scott, Layden he's terrific in the front office. He's a terrific talent evaluator and gets along with everyone, so there shouldn't be any problem there. When you look at the staff, Andy Greer, longtime assistant to Tom Thibodeau, I heard also had been released along with Thibodeau. So now you have Ed Pinckney, Ryan Saunders, and you have Malik Allen, the remainder of the staff. So Saunders, let's say, moves up as interim head coach. Hopefully, Ed Pinckney, who could be a candidate to be a head coach, Malik Allen, hopefully are safe for now as they move forward and give Ryan a chance to coach his team.
Certainly interesting to see the Timberwolves move on following a win against the Los Angeles Lakers. The Toronto Raptors looking for a victory against the Indiana Pacers, and Kyle Lowry back after missing the last 6 games, and he's back with a vengeance. Raptors ahead by 7. We'll break that down next on the American Express Halftime. Well, the Toronto Raptors certainly don't look like a team playing the second night of a back-to-back czar. They're hot in the first half from three-point range, like a role reversal with Indiana.
It certainly is, because coming in, Indiana was 5th in the league in three-point shooting. Toronto 26th, but not so right now. 10 of 18 in the first half. 6 players have made at least 1 3 in that first half, led by Danny Green, who's 4 of 6 from the three-point line.
It's great when you have your point guard back in that lineup. For Kyle Lowry, a guy who's missed the last 6 games, like we said, playing the second night of a back-to-back, you get some fresh legs and a guy who's good at distributing.
Good at distributing and also showing this year, Coach, he's being a better leader. So when Kawhi Leonard goes out, he knows how to come back in and not force things. A lot of times, as a starter, you want to come back and force a lot of things. Not tonight. A long rebound. You say defense, how do you lose a guy like Kyle Lowry? Coach, you talk about those threes. Those goes one of those threes right there. Sharing the basketball. He's only taking 6 shots. You would think maybe more shots. Chris, no. You're in transition. You don't stop the ball. As transition 1-on-1, stop the ball first. Now you get an old-fashioned and 1. Now you're feeling real good about yourself. I talked about the patience. Look at this half-court set. He's almost at a half-court, Coach, directing traffic. Tell Big Moose to come get him. Nice screen without fouling. perfect bounce pocket pass for the finish. Kyle Lowry coming back, knowing where he's getting on the floor, how to make the right passes, showing his leadership. I say it all the time. A lot of time a guy comes back, he tries to overshoot and do too much. He's only taking 6 shots.
6 shots, but making sure everyone gets involved. So it looks like Kyle Lowry off to a great start in returning to this lineup after missing the last 6 games. So Toronto Raptors with the lead over the Indiana Pacers. And if you look at their side, they played well, but it's Toronto making the run.
Well, obviously, if you're going to be a very, very good team and go deep into the playoffs, you have to be able to defend. And we saw early on in the first quarter, one team shooting 65%, the other shooting 62% from the floor. Giving up this number of points is not going to get you a whole lot of wins. So I would think there'll be some defensive adjustments made by both teams. And I'm sure that Nick would love to see Toronto come out and continue the hot hand from the three-point line.
Exactly.
This has been a busy afternoon around the league so far. Game underway, Charlotte and Phoenix. Malik Monk.
Ooh, the lefty.
Not just all dunks. Nice finish around the basket. Okay, so Karl Anthony Towns, 28 points in each of his last 7 games, but breaking news from Minnesota. Tom Thibodeau has been fired as the head coach. This, according to Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania, both Yahoo and ESPN reporting that Tom Thibodeau is out as the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves.
And president too, right? I mean, he was the president too, coach. So when you get fired, you lose both of those jobs, right?
I think you lose both of them.
Yeah, I'm thinking I think you fire the coach and not fire the president, right? Because he was the president making the decisions for the coach.
Well,
right, Tom, for that?
That could happen. You could fire somebody as a coach and keep him in the front office.
Right, okay.
Okay, like Urban Meyer leaves Ohio State, but he's going to be around. Some
President and coach, he's out as both.
Yeah, as both.
So
that's
3D,
official. Okay. Ooh.
Looking at the situation in Minnesota, why now?
Well, I guess, Glenn Taylor is the owner who sat down with his group and said he doesn't like the way things are going. The Jimmy Butler situation wasn't great. If you go back and look, and people say the Houston trade was probably better because there was more, picks there. So maybe they sit down and said, let's pull the trigger now before the All-Star break, before the trade deadline, if there's more moves to be made, Coach.
I look at it as because of their last stretch of 8 games, 5-3, brings them back into the playoff race. They're 2 games out of that 8th spot in the Western Conference. And you just got done saying how great Karl Anthony Towns has been playing. Karl Anthony Towns has a direct line to the owner of the team. That's how his contract got done over again. That wasn't a president making that move. That was the owner saying that. So maybe Karl Anthony Towns knows more than we do about what was going on in that situation. Perhaps that's the reason why we see a rejuvenated Karl Anthony Towns over the last 8 games. That's just speculation.
Well, again, this is reported right now. This is not official from the Minnesota Timberwolves, but if this is the case, you still have a team fighting for a playoff spot. What do they do now? How hard is it to find a head coach in the middle of a season?
I doubt that you make a move like that without knowing what direction you're heading in before.
Right.
Is it someone that's sitting out? And there are a number of recent head coaches that were fired that are sitting around, okay, that they might turn to. Or is there somebody within the organization that they have tremendous confidence in, that the players have shown the backing for that person, and that's who you turn to try and finish out, just like happened as Tyronn Lue took over in Cleveland and wound up finishing that season and was given the job full-time after that.
Yeah, in most cases, Chris, you stay within because one of those, if not all of those assistants collectively can continue to preach the system versus bringing a brand new coach in now and trying to, like to your point, last 8 games, Catman is rolling, so for a brand new coach to come in, now he has to either know the system they've been playing to kind of keep things going that way, or to your point, Coach, you're going to the top assistant you have in there. Maybe Ed Pinckney, is their top assistant right now.
I was just going to say.
He's been around a long time, and maybe it's an opportunity.
Ed Pinckney's been around a long time, has talked to a number of teams about possibly becoming their head coach. He's been by Thibodeau's side for a long, long time, and he's kind of been the go-between between players and coaching staff. Why not give him a chance? If
I think he deserves
it.
I think he deserves it. So it's be interesting.
So apparently Ryan Saunders is reportedly going to fill in on an interim basis as a coach there in Minnesota. So when you hear that name, what's the first thing you think about, Coach?
Think of his father, Flip.
Yep.
This young man grew up in a basketball household, and everyone who has worked with him has nothing but really good things to say about Ryan.
Yeah.
So if that's the direction they're going in, you know he's going to work. You know he knows the game of basketball. And he obviously must be able to relate to the players because of the positions they've put him in within the organization. So if he's getting that shot, you wish him well, and we'll see the job he can do.
Ryan's been around from day one, to your point, Coach, as a kid. The one short year I was there, he's always been one of those kind of kids that's related to the players. He's been with the organization. He knows where all the, as they say, where all the bodies are buried, so to speak. So I think he can fit in right away. And I think Cat and Wiggs and all those young guys that are there now, I think they would accept it as well.
More on this situation as it progresses. So we see Tom Thibodeau reportedly out as the head coach there in Minnesota. And also, popular players in the world hadn't been matched in years. In this episode of Storytime with Shaq, Bro Parrish talks to Diesel about that game and his relationship with Yao throughout their careers.
Tonight, the Rockets doing battle with the Los Angeles Lakers, and it's not just a game, it's a happening. I'm telling you folks, everybody who is anybody in the Houston area or in Texas is here tonight to see this battle. It's the first matchup ever between Yao Ming and Shaquille O'Neal.
What do you remember when you're first stepping in the circle with Yao Ming the first time you two played each other?
Knew nothing about him. Knew he was 7'5", 7'8", so you know, we got to Houston and, yeah, I'm like, okay, they're trying to do like Rocky IV, Apollo Creed, all this and that. They want to give him the fanfare. So I said, okay. So, I wanted to give him a little finesse. I wanted to show him I was smooth. So I get on the post, and I go right there. He blocks it. Crowd go crazy. You got that. You 7'8", you're supposed to block it. Get another move. He blocks it. Third time he blocks it. Now I'm mad. Now I got to go in the playoff mode. Now I got to turn the power, turn it all the way up. It's the first time I got my shot blocked 3 times in a row. But what gave me the super confidence is, hey, you done killed Patrick Ewing. You done killed David Robinson. You neck and neck with your favorite player, Akeem Olajuwon. He's a young kid. Turn it up. Go into that mode. But it was definitely a fun battle between me and him. Definitely respect him. Definitely respect his culture. I go to China 5-6 times a year. Whenever I'm in Shanghai, we always have tea. We always have great conversation. I just wish that he didn't have those injuries that he had. I would have loved to have more battles with him. He's probably the only guy that really tested me. And he tested me because he was 7'8", and he was hard to move. He couldn't stop me, but guess what? I couldn't stop him either. I put him in the category of a king. Like, hey, King, you can't stop me, but I know I can't stop that fadeaway. And he was the only guy that would catch it in the post and look at me. He just looked like, y'all just look at me, and then I'd come and drop block, and he just shoot right over me. Whoop. I'd be like, damn. But the funny thing, the first couple times, China, language barrier, I never knew he spoke English. So one day I hit him with a nice bing, bing on the baseline. Ha ha! Shot the boom. He's like, nice move, brother. And I was like, you talk English? He's like, yeah, I'm talking. I was like, why you didn't tell me? He said, Shaq, you never talked to me. I was like, man. So after that moment, like, we, really became close.
Shaq, every game we played remind me of the old saying that what doesn't kill you make you stronger. Thank you for that.
And I was honored to be on the same stage as him during Hall of Fame weekend. When you talk about the history of basketball, long after we're gone, hopefully this conversation will still be around when East meets West.
Cool moment during that Hall of Fame ceremony. You actually got to put the jacket on him. He was struggling. What happened exactly when he was trying to put on his jacket?
Well, he's a big dude, and when you get really big and you get older, you start to get stiff like a tree. So I'm sure his shoulders are kind of banged up a little bit. So I said, let me help you out, brother. But he's the only dude that makes me feel small. They say he's 7'6", but he's like my favorite convenience store. He's 7-Eleven all day. He's 7-Eleven.
Talk about his impact globally just on the game of basketball.
He's done a lot for China. He's done a lot for the game of international basketball. And, I don't think there's anybody bigger or better that could have done the job. When I go to China, everybody mentions Yao Ming. It's like a god over there.
It's incredible to see a guy half a foot taller than Shaq. Brendan, you played against Yao as well. What was it like? You're a 7-footer. The first time you step on a court with a guy half a foot taller than you when you're used to being half a foot taller than everybody else.
It was incredibly different for me because I'm used to being taller than everybody else, or at least being eye level. And with Yao Ming, it was something different. He was so tall. He had a height advantage. And something that was weird to me was I literally could not see the ball coming up the court when I was behind him. So, like, guys would be like, why didn't you call it the screen? Like, I couldn't see you. I really couldn't see him. And so Yao presented a lot of challenges, especially trying to guard him. He had some very good moves. He had counters. He had spins. He had some step backs. Did I make that? Okay, I got a couple of highlights off on Yao, but for the most part, it was very hard for me to guard Yao Ming because he really didn't have to jump much, and he kept the ball high. If you really watch Yao in his highlights, he just has that ball, and he's moving it here, and you respond to his fake so much because he keeps the ball high. He's incredibly tall. He was very skilled, and he had a lot of stuff in his game, and Jeff Van Gundy did an excellent job of what I would call using weak side duck-in, something that we don't use nowadays in the game of basketball, where they would run a screen and roll on this side of the court with Tracy McGrady. And I would have to respond and come off of Yao's body. And then he would just duck in that lane and get big and catch the ball. And there was nothing I could do a lot of times. Playing against Yao was very challenging.
Griff, when you look at someone like Yao Ming, you think of his career, and it was a great career, but cut short due to injuries. How great could he have been if he would have stayed healthy?
Yeah, and I think about how good that Houston Rockets team could have been. They had the 07 team, I think, won 22 games in a row with T-Mac and Yao. And both of those guys had really significant injuries. I think that year only one of them was able to play even 60 games. I think Yao played 66 maybe. T-Mac may have played like 55. But they weren't ever able to stay on the court together. But when they did, they were so truly elite. We were really robbed of seeing the best of that team as well. The other thing that really stands out to me is when the legend of Yao was being told by Shaq, Yao will have been 8'3". He started at 7'6", and he called him 7'11" by the end.
That is pretty funny. I mean, I guess for Shaq, he's not used to looking up, so then he just adds inches to that, right? Well, that's a former Rocket great. The ascension up the MVP ladder for current Rocket. We'll tell you who's moving on up. I think you know who it is. That's up next.